evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 6th Town Council meeting. I apologize for being late. My clock is actually 5 minutes slow in my office. All right, so if you will kindly join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a moment of silence for those who served in D-Day. Thank you. Okay, and before we get started tonight, we have a little special something for a very special young man who is in the audience, and I would like to call him up to the front stage, and his name is Derek Ritchie. Okay, this is Derek Ritchie, who has recently become an Eagle Scout, and we wanted to acknowledge you this evening, and I have a little proclamation for you. And so you can turn and face this way because that's our camera, and then everyone can see you. Okay, especially Mom and Dad. Okay, so this is in recognition of Derek Ritchie, community partner in Eagle Scout. So whereas Derek Ritchie is an honor roll student currently attending Rocky Hill High School, and whereas throughout his academic career he has held several leadership positions, such as Assistant Senior Patrol Leader and Outdoor Ethics Guide, and whereas he participates in several school clubs and has been involved in scouting for the past 11 years, whereas he has worked at Camp Workomen and attended the Sea Base High Adventure Camp in Florida, whereas he serves as a role model for the younger scouts, as well as a mentor, and whereas he has participated in dozens of service projects and led the troop in completing his Eagle Project. And whereas this project involved repurposing unused land behind the Church of St. Andrew by cutting down overgrowth, pulling out trees, rototilling, and seeding. And if you could get me a photo of that, I know you have some. It was a huge project, so we can put those up for folks to see. And whereas Scouting is chartered by the United States Congress to promote character, citizenship, fitness, Scouting teaches young men to be trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, brave, and reverent. And whereas Derek exemplifies all of these traits and takes all of these characteristics very seriously. So now, therefore, I, Lisa J. Murata, Mayor of the Town of Rocky Hill, hereby recognize Derek Ritchie for his dedication and love of scouting and for all of his achievements in becoming an Eagle Scout, and call upon all of our residents to join me in recognizing this extraordinary young man. Congratulations. Okay, now I'm going to acknowledge that Jeff Levine is zooming in remotely. Hello, Councilor Levine. Folks could probably see him at home. And we will move on to public comment. So this portion of the meeting is specifically set aside for comments from the public who are asked to limit their comments to 2 minutes. Any person interested in providing comment but cannot attend the meeting should email their written comment to publicmeetings@rockyhillct.gov. Are you approaching? Okay. Yay, we have public.
All right, thanks. Ed Ciccarello, 40 Riverview Road. Wearing a couple hats tonight from the Historical Society and then walk bike Rocky Hill. Good things are happening, folks. Good things that are happening here in Rocky Hill. I hope you've walked by Academy Hall and you've seen the beautiful signs, the point of interest signs that are that are around there. And I want to give thanks to the folks that made that happen, certainly the volunteers at the Historical Society, but also town staff, John Meir, Kim Ritchie, Joe Lentini, Steve Sokolek, all helped to make that happen. We received a grant from the Christine E. Mosier Foundation, and it was quite a good mistake that we made, that we actually ended up with a balance, so we're hoping that we're going to be able to make more signs around the old triangle for the Congregational Church, maybe 9/11, maybe the firehouse, Cora Bell, so we're hoping to put more signs. That's one thing. I put my Walk Bike Rocky Hill hat on, and we got new signs for the Greenway. You remember a while back ago we came to Sandy Kelly, who's sitting over there, and I came to you and we proposed a Greenway maybe about a year ago. We connected Quarry Park down through the Historic District to Ferry Park and Sewillow, and went down to Buckley and all the way down to Dividend. Roughly 4 miles if you went straight, but if you hiked everywhere in there, it would probably be about 10 miles. So I went down to Groton and we got 8 signs, and we're putting up now. I wanted just to thank you for your support because you voted unanimously for this. So thank you very much. Good things are happening.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public who wishes to be heard?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Monica Busley. I've been living in Rocky Hill from past 6 years in this beautiful town. So I'm here to address one, not an issue, but a request to you that if we can rent out the senior/community center to the public. So I run some of my fitness classes through Zoom, and I would really want to help the Rocky Hill resident to with my classes. So if I can rent it, and that will be great. I know there have been, it was rented before, but there were some issues with the maintenance and so on, but I think with certain measure we can, handle that. And on top of it, I see our neighboring towns like Glastonbury, they do rent their community centers to the public, so it will be nice if Rocky Hill can implement the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to be heard? Okay. We will move on then to appointments and resignations. A, appointments, Central Connecticut Health District, 2 appointments. Councilor Duff?
Yes, we have one appointment to the Health District, and we have two vacancies that were on open space wetlands. So the first one was we're reappointing Barbara Gilbert to the Health District Board. And then for Open Space Wetlands Conservation Commission, we are appointing Jody O'Connor as a regular member and Melissa Kaplan as an alternate.
Okay.
Sure. We would like to also make a reappointment renewal term for the Central Connecticut Health District, Judy Sartucci. And with regards to planning and zoning, Jeff Thoman resigns and Steve Lecco is appointed to his spot on P&Z as an alternate.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for those who are stepping down. Thank you for your service. And for those who are just coming aboard, thank you. And to our wonderful women at Central Connecticut Health District, thank you for signing up again.
Mr. Mayor,
Could Chris just repeat the people that you appointed? Yes. Committee again? Yeah, I'll send you a follow-up email too. If you can do that, that's fine. Yeah, I'll say it's Jody O'Connor. Jody? Yep. Jody with an I?
L-D-I.
Yep. And that's the regular member. And then Melissa Kaplan, Kaplan, as the alternate. Was that wetlands? Yes, both of them wetlands. Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to approval of minutes. A, Town Council meeting May 2nd, 2022.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve Town Council meeting minutes of May 2nd, 2022, and council meeting, can I do both at once? And council meeting minutes, May 16th, 2022. I'll second them.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Madam Mayor, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda.
Okay.
Under old business, we'd like to add old business item C, discussion, possible action, alternative sources of revenue, community senior center. Second.
I'm just reading it down. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All set? Okay. I'm moving on to subcommittee reports, beginning with finance.
Finance has not met since our last meeting. We're scheduled to meet this Thursday at 6 p.m.
Okay. And government operations.
You're on mute,
Run,
so-
mute, Jeff.
Still, yeah.
So,
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
No. Do we have to let him in from the IT side? We're gonna move along while you figure that out.
I can offer status or we can wait for him, one or the other.
Oh, okay, that would be perfect. Yeah, no. Councilor Malero, do you want an update?
I can offer status if that's okay, Jeff? Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. We have some updates around the facilities, mentioning that the bidding package for the HVAC system replacement is being worked on. The PD women's locker room should be wrapped up this week, ready to move in. Some upcoming project they talked about with regards to starting a library project, removing the encounter and set up mobile counter systems, some alterations, equipment alterations, move alterations. They're bringing in, they're talking about future projects around bringing in wiring a modular conference room both at the library. We'll be upgrading the Academy Hall Museum Electrical Service as another project, and we'll also be upgrading the fire system at the Academy Hall as well as the electrical service upgrades. Some other topics brought up with regards to the firehouse. Actually, I don't have any notes on the firehouse, John, on this one. The HVAC, I know that. Touch base on.
Yeah, you're working.
Oh, the HVAC, that's right, I apologize. The Stevens School HVAC project, still in design and dev phase. The Griswold Middle School roof replacement already applied. But they're working on some resolutions had to go back to council, BOE, for determining around approval for town funds. They're not using ARP. And the Griswold Middle School science classroom upgrade started in June 20th, and for replacing the 8th grade labs. Then there was some lengthy discussions around the Elbridge Park grant, and where Greg offered some background topics around the sketches. They've had multiple sketches that were presented, and they're right now still up in the air based on the selection process, but there will be a report around what next steps would be, and along with some cost analysis accordingly. They're talking about how we're updating the pool, the pickleball areas, the courts, and so forth. I don't know if Jonathan wanted to add a few other items to that. No, as you said, they're going to give a report. They're going to do an analysis of the pool to see what shape that's in and cost to rehab it as opposed to putting in a brand new one. And getting a lot of multi-purpose field or courts with, and then they're doing something for the next to the Miracle Field called Kevin's Court or something like that, so that it allows people to play basketball with the baskets at different heights and so on. So I guess Southlands is the first town that did it. And then they're going to do something maybe for help the cricket players in town get started. So more to come around that. Definitely some good information today, and I don't have any other updates.
Awesome. Thank you. Counselor, would you know that you're on? Do you want to add anything to that?
Can you hear me now, or?
Yes.
Okay. No, that was a good update. I guess, John, the only question, when's our next meeting? Because July 4th is the Monday we would normally have it.
We have the 18th listed on the schedule.
Okay. And then July 18th. Thanks for doing that, John Lara.
Okay, moving on to public safety.
Madam Mayor, no meeting, but it is important at this time when municipalities around the country are experiencing a lot of violent activity to let our citizens know that while during the pandemic we did suspend our ALIS training, but thanks to our Rocky Hill Police Department and our Human Resources and Compliance Department, they are on schedule, and that for the entire month of June, we have 4 ALIS training. ALIS stands for Alert, Lockdown, Conform, Counter, Evacuate. And these are workplace active shooter, violent critical incident response trainings for employees. And I thank the departments for getting that back on the schedule and already having this planned out well in advance. The next meeting is June 20th at 5:30.
Okay, thank you. Senior Liaison?
Senior Liaison did have a quick meeting on May 23rd. From the senior services, we now have a little over 1,200 members of the senior community. That represents 20 towns, so people from out of town participating. Also, the picnic tables that the council approved with ARPA funds have been delivered and installed, so there's 7 tables now outside, and they're already in use for some of the lunches. On the human services side, the community garden has been planted, and what's grown in the community garden goes to the food pantry, so some fresh vegetables for those in need. The other item was renter's rebate is now open, or has been open. Any seniors or people that are disabled have to the end of September to apply for a renter's rebate. I believe it's anybody that was renting from January to December of 2021 is eligible. Human Services will help with the paperwork required for that. Melissa did note that individuals that are interested in applying should probably get their paperwork in early. With increases in rents, there may be more demand for rebates. The last item, Rocky Hill is one of the few towns that maintained a medical closet through COVID, and our supply within the medical closet is on the lower side at this point. Some of the items, wheelchairs, walkers, portable commodes, those type of items, if anybody has them, I'd like to donate them that are in good shape. Human Services will accept those. They cannot accept items like adult diapers that have already been opened, but they can accept closed boxes. And that concludes Senior Liaison.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to land acquisition and farmland preservation.
We did meet on May 24th, and we also had on-site small staff meeting on June 2nd. On May 24th, we did have the Yukon consultants in to show us their latest updates, and we knew that on June 2nd, staff would be walking down one last time and awarding the demolition contract, which they did successfully on June 2nd. John, I don't know, if maybe by Wednesday the town will release the proceed to work document for that contractor?
Did they do that yet, Ray? Day release? Oh. You have to wait for the certification.
Okay. We have a reasonable expectation that if that gets issued this week sometime, at least by the end of the week, that the contractor needs to start within 10 days of receiving that proceed to work, and they have, Ray, 40 days? 60 days? 60 days to complete the removal of all the structures, housing structures, not to include the brownstone, not to include fieldstone fence, walls and brownstone structures, foundations that are there. We're going to use those. The next meeting is June 20th at June 28th at 6 o'clock.
Okay. Moving on to liaison to the state representative and state senator.
No report?
School liaison.
No report, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Capital Improvements Committee.
No meeting, no report.
Economic Development Subcommittee.
Also no meeting, no report.
Town Manager Search Committee.
Town Manager Search Committee. We met on May 20th with Doug Hall. That was an in-person meeting. Doug Hall is the representative from our search committee that was awarded, and the search committee, just for the record again, is SGR, Strategic Government Resources, and they have done a lot of work in the area. So we did meet with him, and search committee members were able to discuss directly with the representative of what they're looking for and just question them on their process. We did get a timeline at that meeting that we sent comments back to, and they will be amending that timeline. And then on June 1st, we did have another meeting in person to discuss interim town manager issues. And with that, that's it. We will meet next as needed.
Okay, thank you. There is nothing on the consent agenda, so we will move on to subsection A of old business. Discussion, possible action, American Rescue Plan ARP funding options.
Just in the packet, there's two memos from Steve Sobelak relating to some money the council appropriated from the ARP funds to do some design engineering work for the Glastonbury Avenue pedestrian corridor, as well as the expansion of Center Green. We got two bids back, and you can see B&L Company's got the low bid for both of them. So we'll be moving forward with B&L to do the traffic pedestrian engineering studies, et cetera, for those two, excuse me, for those two areas.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, moving on to B, discussion possible action, approval, one resolution for Griswold School roof replacement project.
A few meetings ago, the Board of Ed came in with a need to replace the roof at Griswold Middle School, and with the understanding that they would apply for a grant from the state, in which we get probably over 40% of the cost reimbursed. There's 4 resolutions that the town council had to pass in order for the Board of Ed to file the grant with the appropriate agency. One of the resolutions related to funding the town's share of the project, and the state did not like the reference of ARP money. They do not want ARP money to be used on these types of projects. So after the resolution was written up before we knew the final proposed amount that the Board of Ed is going to be returning to the town, with that money that was going to replace the ARP money. So the resolution that's in your packet basically is similar to the last one, except it doesn't make any reference to ARP. They're just looking for approval tonight so that they can reapply before June 10th. So if we get this approved, they'll apply this week forward.
Okay.
So I'll make the motion, be it resolved that the Rocky Hill Town Council authorizes the approval of the Albert D. Griswold Middle School roof replacement project in the amount of $1.8 million from the capital improvement account and the reserve for capital and non-recurring expenditure fund, school improvements, Griswold Middle School roof replacement project line. These sources are sufficient to cover the local share of said project.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, before we move on to the next item, just circling back to item 7A,
Yeah.
looking at the packet, it looked like they were looking for a vote to approve those two contracts to BL companies.
Okay.
There's really no need. The price came in below our threshold.
I got it, okay.
But you can do it if you'd like to. You can do it. But there really is no need. This is more informative that we did get somebody to start looking into those projects, which could turn into something with one of the grants that are out there.
That's sufficient?
We had previously approved the 50,000, and because the combined total is under 50,000, we don't need to re-vote. Just by a kitten's whisker over there.
Okay. Good question. Right?
Someone did their
Right?
math on that one.
No tax.
Right? Okay, moving on to C, discussion, possible action, alternative sources of revenue, community/senior center, which was really odd timing because someone came tonight to talk about that. But we just wanted to circle back because we had put that on the agenda. Well, we had brought it up in discussion at one point, and we wanted to kind of see where did we leave that? Were we looking into that? Or should we formally look into that?
Well, I think you started it before or during the budget session.
Yeah.
So it probably got pushed down
Yeah.
a bit. To revisit it, is this a discussion time or, and so on? So I guess it's more like the guidelines, what are we thinking of doing about it? I think in the past we rent out some of the rooms for organizations to hold meetings and so on and so forth. I guess the question is, do we want to open it up to the public for so-called entertainment in our multi-purpose room and so on, in which there'd probably be food and so on, and then how often the town would like to do it? Is it just one weekend a month or so on? But I guess it's more are we looking to open it up on a weekend so that it could provide sort of a larger meeting space associated with food and so on. And then again, we do have to remember we need to staff it with a custodian during the whole operation, as well as possibly have a healthy deposit put down there to make sure people don't do damage to the new location, to the new community senior center.
Did we say that we were, okay, let me just back up. We're discussing. Did we say that we were going to look at another town's contract before we reinvent the wheel? So should we do that?
Yeah, I think that was our thought, was finding a similar size town or a similar facility that was having success with their program, trying to learn what they're doing, and see if we could do a similar model. Because we want to find something that works, and also not something that is so cost prohibitive that no one can actually use it, but also protects the town in case there is damage. So if there's some research that can be done there, I think that would be a good start.
Yeah, I think Glastonbury was brought up as well, and even tonight. So I think, John, we can look at neighboring towns, I guess, and if you can draw up something, like, I mean, if we can have something to discuss next time around, like on paper, I guess, that'll be good.
I wonder, another thought, if the architects who have built other of these, I mean, they might have some follow-up or some insight. Like, they work with those folks, they probably do some checking, maybe they've got some ideas.
Okay. All right, that's good. That's a good start. Okay, thank you. Moving on to new business, update Brownfield's Grant, $200,000, 35-55 Evans Road. Mr. Carpentino is approaching the podium.
Good evening, all. Okay. Rocky Hill, once again, is a recipient of a $200,000 Brownfield Grant. This time, we're trying to incentivize redevelopment of 45 or 35 through 59, I believe, Evans Road. Owner of the property is ABC Enterprises. Quite a unique property, about 8 acres or 3,000 feet of Connecticut River frontage, typical brownfield. People do not want to touch it, developers don't want to touch it due to potential contamination issues. So we decided to apply for a Brownfield Grant for Phase 1, 2, and 3 environmental assessments to be conducted. We won the $201,000. I don't know where the $1,000 came in because the cap was 200, but they gave us an extra 1,000, so we'll take it. So the next step is to comply with all the certifications that we have to comply with and all of the assistance agreement requirements and filing. So that is what we're doing now. We just received notification of that particular phase, so I'm working on that now.
I just want to say that I think this is incredibly exciting because it's a spectacular piece of property. And we've been talking with the owner for, many, many months now. And it is just contaminated. A lot of awful stuff happened there. And I think, Ray, is it the same parcel that has that EPA warning on it where you cannot build residential? No, it's not. That one's farther down. Okay.
It's considered a brownfield because there's a potential of contamination. There may not be, but
Yep.
This is more of a leverage incentivizing the developer, at no cost to the town.
Yeah.
But maybe based on the past use, it used to be an oil company back in the 30s and 40s. ABC took the oil tanks out, and it just is underutilized, and it's a piece of property that should not be underutilized.
So it has that deep water dock,
It has a deep water dock, 3,000 feet.
and it has the line running off where they used to offload the oil tankers out on site, and then it has the embankment that Wetlands Commission required to be replanted.
Yes. He did replant, I believe, or is working on replanting. This is an opportunity for us, the town, and also for the property owners to, as they call, leave a lineage to their family to get this property redeveloped appropriately.
It's been a slow improvement process, but it's been improving.
And, this is the key.
Yeah.
It sounds like you have done the phase 1. I mean, we know that there's an issue there, but I know there's a formal process. What's the timeline to get this started and go through the phase 1? And obviously, we already know there's oil, so there'll be a phase 2.
Yeah, probably a phase 3. Phase 1, they usually take 4 weeks. Phase 2, another 6, and then if you're going into phase 3, it could be longer. But I believe there's a 2-year horizon for this particular grant proposal. Similar to the farm, the same type of grant.
But are we going to be moving quicker than a 2-year time frame, or are we just going to...
We're going to move as soon as DEC says yes.
Okay, so that's the first caveat.
There's 2 state approvals
Okay.
that have to go through, and then once you get those approvals, then you can probably get moving.
We just have to do all the
You have
proper
to miss the
certifications and filings and the deeds and all that. And so this is phase 1, 2, and 3 environmental assessment. So this is assessing the site, taking 4 samples water, but it wouldn't actually be the remediation on it. That would still be to come, assuming a developer were willing to fund it or another grant could be obtained. Correct. So this is coming up with a plan on how we will fix it. Fixing it comes down the road. Right.
just want to make one correction for the land acquisition report. You are right. The notice to proceed went out earlier for the farm demolition.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for having us. Moving on to B, discussion, possible action, approval of subcommittee volunteer sustainable group.
In your packet is a legal opinion from the town attorney relating to forming that committee, Sustainable Connecticut Committee meeting, and I think, briefly, I think it's, the town council just needs to authorize the mayor to establish such a committee. I guess it could be considered a task force, and then move on from there if you want to put in bylaws or anything like that. But it sounds like the opinion is that the council just has to authorize the mayor to formulate this committee. And I believe it's going to be formulated from members of PIC committee.
Well, we have a strong volunteer group now who's interested, and depending on how many people, want to be on the task force, we might want to start out with this dedicated group that's been doing it under Pam Loach, who's here, our environmental waste and sustainable material and energy, all things consultant. I guess the question I have is, it's not a subcommittee, right? Because it's not right. So it's a task force, and would it exist under PIC, or it exists as its own entity?
Well, the authors here that wrote the opinion, but I would say it exists as its own subcommittee.
Okay.
But
so we could get a little more guidance. We can ask maybe for a little more guidance on how to formulate it, what its duties would be.
I think I don't know if you're gonna have formal duties like bylaws or anything like that, or whether just form the committee, because it'll probably be just in place for a period of time and then dissolve. Not be.
Potentially, because so I'm just thinking out loud. The purpose is, just by way of background, when we join Sustainable CT, there are a number of actions that you do, and then you get points, and based on the number of points you get certification levels. So to help us along with that, and also with DEEP, we hired Pam as a consultant, and little by little, volunteers have been helping Pam. These volunteers meet once a week, and they are so dedicated, and they have so many things on their agenda. And I think, I pop in, they're all virtual every now and then, and I think the issue now is that this core group has stayed as a core group, but they need a little bit more of a formal environment, or a platform. For instance, they don't have minutes, and once in a while, Pam, I think, will put together an agenda. But there are so many things to do under Sustainable CT. And then they probably want to come to council every now and then and say, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing, and these are the different actions that we're working on to get certification. So if you like, I can call Pam up if you have questions, because I probably couldn't answer them, but please ask. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this initiative, it's something that other towns are doing as well, right? This is all, I guess we'll find out in a couple of minutes. I think that DEEP would create some type of a template, since every town's got the same issue. What is this going to be? Is it can be established as an independent nonprofit? What is it? So
Sustainable CT has a template, and we actually have a contact person, thanks to our town attorney, that we can reach out to, who has that, sort of organizational chart and what it looks like. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I just wonder how prescriptive we need to be. In the opinion that we got It noted the POCD provides for the creation of a local sustainability task force to promote sustainability and resiliency and propose programs useful to residents and businesses. Could it just be that? Or do we have to go, in more detail and let them define it? I wonder, how in-depth we would need to be as far as, I guess we would pass a resolution to create the committee.
There probably needs some guidance though, because we want them to be effective in coming up with ideas and presenting them to us. For example, someone just mentioned taking minutes, for example. So providing a structure that someone is appointed to do that, so they have the necessary equipment, they're submitting the information along the proper channels, rather than just expecting them to figure that out on their own. If we want them to be effective, I think they're going to need some kind of a guidance. So again, I guess we'll see. Every town's got the same issue, I suppose. So, hopefully there is a model that we can just sort of adopt rather than inventing the wheel. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and we will request from legal counsel, and we'll also reach out to the person, and perhaps Pam could help us with that. If you'd like, sure. We can reach out to the person who has formed other sustainable groups. Because one of the things is, Chris, for instance, they're working on so many things and they want to get that information out to the public. So, we're like, oh yeah, let's throw it up on the website. But the reality is we can't throw it up on the website because IT Gen has two sections. One is residents and one is government, and they don't fall under, really either. So that's the trouble we're getting into.
Yeah, I guess is this working?
Yeah.
Okay. Pam Roach, the town's sustainability consultant. So yeah, I was thinking maybe under residential we could put a link there to the sustainable team. I don't know if that's a possibility. That way there they can list everything that's going on. But some of the other towns in the state of Connecticut, Essex has a very large sustainable team. They've done a lot of things, and they have, some of the towns have a link on the website. Some of the towns, some groups have just their own website. So Cheshire has their own nonprofit. They're their own nonprofit, and it's kind of separate from the town. But they also have a sustainability team, of people that are part of like a town committee that get them to be to bronze or to get them to be certified. But some of the other task forces in the state, I'll give you some examples of some of the things that they list as duties, or things that they do, like assist in recognizing all that. So assist myself, town consultant, and staff with developing sustainability goals, objectives, and policies. Okay. Again, we just have an overall statement like you mentioned, Chris, but encourage and promote sustainability in town programs, services, operations, planning, and goal setting. Foster partnerships with and between community organizations. Very important, right? Recommend initiatives and improvements to town policies and programs to ensure Rocky Hill remains a thriving, efficient, healthy, and vibrant place for its residents of today and tomorrow, including sustainability initiatives and equity. We've seen some of that this week. Identify and make recommendations to the town council concerning affordable strategies associated with conservation, renewable energy efficiency, and other sustainability-related initiatives and programs. Provide support for town practices and projects that can help Rocky Hill manage its growth to safeguard the health of its environment, ensure reliability and economical use of its natural resources, and preserve the quality of life of its residents today and for the future. So there's some repetitiveness there, obviously, but just some ideas of what the group can do, what other task forces have been doing in other towns. And this group has been, I think it's 30 people now on this group. I mean, it's amazing. Like, people just keep coming in.
Right.
And, there's only a core group of us that are at each of the meetings, don't get me wrong, but some of these kids have lacrosse, every night. Some parents that are on the team have to be at lacrosse, their kids, so they still want to be involved and just be called on as needed, especially when this grant gets rolled out. I'm saying when. When this grant gets rolled out, we're going to need every single person on that team doing, posting social messages. And we'll have a script and or we'll have a list of things that people can say, because that's going to be important for it to be streamlined properly. But, it'll be important to have all that support.
Yeah, to me, it looks like to me that it's really not the charter or the mission or the goal of why they exist, It's more about how they record their work, how they communicate their work, and what the structure of their existence looks like. I mean, that's what I mean, everything else is, I think, pretty well defined, and, from a charter perspective, I mean, if you will.
I would add that if we're going to get a report on your subcommittees every now and then, it's also a way to communicate to the council and to the general public formally.
Right. Yes, they need they essentially need a vessel to communicate and record, I guess.
Also to say, hey, we're here, this is what we're doing,
Right.
how great is Rocky Hill, and, and all the things all the events we're having, and all the things we're doing to make this more sustainable,
And then the question will become what should be the core group, right? I mean, you have 30 people in there. It cannot be, I think, that's just my opinion, it cannot be a 30-people committee, right? So whatever, or task force, right, whatever the right word is.
define the number of people.
Yeah, you have to define, just like probably the way we did for the Committee for Inclusion, right? I mean, it's kind of similar in a way, at least in my head, like from a framework perspective.
Yeah, I think because this one is so driven by the funding available through the Sustainable CT program, which is very broad, we could probably be a little bit less prescriptive, and maybe we could, and it'd be interesting to see what other towns are doing, but maybe we could just say that they elect their officers. Yeah, I think this will be something where there'll be a core group of people who are probably the experts who have been there a long time, and other folks might be more project specific. Like the Sustainable CT program is very project specific, so you might have people who want to do a pocket park. When they get involved with that, they do it for 4 months, and then they go to lacrosse or wherever else. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We want to tell them. It seems like we probably we may have a good sense of who those folks are. Maybe let them elect their leaders or officers. I don't know, but maybe interesting to see what other towns are doing, because I think we'll have a core group of people who know how the system works, and other people who might kind of roll in, roll off, depending on what else they're working on.
Depending on the projects, because the actions, oh my gosh, there's 12 objective categories, but there's 200 actions, something crazy. It changes year to year. So once you're certified for 3 years, and then you have to, it's ongoing, you have to be certified. So this is ongoing. It's not like you do it and you're done. Maybe that project and you're done, but, there's more and more things as time goes on that we want to keep, keep moving along and keep making the town better and keeping it sustainable and keep reducing waste and saving energy and other projects and making.
And what I understand, it's not just so much getting the goal of right now, silver meet its goal down the road, but it's about how we have projects that touch on all the different things you spoke about. If it's waste reduction, if it's intercultural, food event,
Arts, events,
stuff never go
equity.
away, as long as there's a funding mechanism for it.
So, Pam, you indicated Cheshire set up as an independent nonprofit, 501c3? Is that what it was?
Yes.
How common is that model?
Not that common. I know of Cheshire. I'm not sure how many others. I live in Cheshire, that's why I know I'm on the Coalition for Sustainable Cheshire. I kind of got pulled in on it. But yes, they decided to become their own nonprofit just because it was more helpful with the politics in the town.
And who took the lead on that, filed the paperwork, IRS, all that stuff? How did that work? Did the town assist with that?
There's a woman, Fiona Pearson, who actually ran for town council and by this much, so decided to go off and take this on her own separately and form this committee. So that's how that came about. And the CWCT, they have the CWCT subcommittee group as well that's kind of overlaps with the Coalition of Sustainable Cheshire. So there's two kind of groups there going on. One is a formal committee to, that does all the work to get them certified, and then this group also gets points for Sustainable CT, but it does a lot of other things as well.
I just have this concern that this could be so amorphous that you start losing people. I mean, volunteers really need guidance and structure so they understand what they're part of. It's not necessarily the type of experience that they have that they're used to dealing with in their work life, how to run a meeting, how to appoint officers, how to take and circulate minutes, how to vote, do a second a vote, all that type of stuff. And so what I would hate to see happen is this excitement and passion that people have to just kind of dissipate because we don't know what we have, we don't have a structure. So I think it has to be an urgent priority to decide, what is this? Is it going to be a 501c3? Is there some existing organization, maybe a committee of, could attach it to the Sierra Club or something like that, but something, so it's not just a group of people getting together and talking and not really having structure and guidance as to how they're going to move this forward.
Exactly. That's exactly what we're doing. I don't think it would be a 501c3, but we'll figure out what type of committee it will be.
Sure, and I was just going to add, so the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving formed a group, John, that we attended 2 years ago, 3 years ago, probably 3 years ago now, where they invested $100,000 in an account for Rocky Hill to take on projects around town, diversity, inclusivity. Where is that group, and would they combine efforts with you? I mean, it's been established. I mean, Ed was at that initial meeting. I was there. Sandy Kelly was there. So we've got the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving kind of providing structure and guidance and stewardship of an investment they made for us to use. And then we've got a group that wants to do it. It seems to me like we connect them.
Because the Hartford Foundation wanted you to form a committee to pick out another committee that's going to figure out what to do with the money. So most of the people didn't want to be in that first committee. They wanted to be in the second committee, and so on. So I don't know where it ended up after. I think we met down in Weathersfield one evening.
I mean,
They actually have, I think they're separate and distinct. And that committee that you're talking about actually does have an application out right now for money. If you are a nonprofit, you can apply to get, I think it's like $25,000. I could be wrong. But they are working now. And I think that this is, I think they're just two different things. So this organization under Sustainable CT, now that we are a Sustainable CT, let me just back up. Now that we are a Sustainable CT town, anyone can take part in an action. You don't have to belong to a committee. I mean, any one of us could apply and say, this is my project, and I raised $500. May I have $500 from Sustainable CT? Then that's how actions happen. This group, I think, is just more needed sort of because we have this tremendous grassroots volunteer stuff going on. Kind of analogous to what, these guys do, and they just run around and, but this has become more cohesive, right? So, there's several parts to it. There's a Sustainable CT certification, because we're registered. Then there's the Sustainable CT Community Match Fund, which you alluded to, for raising money for projects, so they match it. And then there's the grassroots that we need for the state grant for unit-based pricing and food waste diversion when we get it. So there's several layers here. And, so the task force, we want to call it the task force, I'm not sure how you feel about that, is, we kind of change depending on what we're working on. So all 30 people would be grassroots. The core group, the core task force group, would be like week to week, month to month type of work on Sustainable CT actions, and maybe if they want to, if somebody wants to, do some fundraising to the community match fund, events, so forth like that. I think that we all agree that, that it's limited in scope. Their actions are limited to whatever Sustainable CT is doing. It's not going to have any authority to exercise, any other type of authority, right? And so I know our attorney has moved up. I don't know. I know that you have moved up. So would you like to come up and just say?
So what I did was I called, so I represented the town of South Windsor, so we got a silver, certification. So I talked to Michelle Light, who was our director, who ran the CT, Sustainable CT for us. And so the way it basically works is, the point structures are designed in order to promote, sustainable projects, trash, walkability, okay? There's a lot of things. And so I went through with her, and I didn't bring them with me. I wrote them down, and I had meant to send an email today, but I didn't get a chance. But there's certain categories, like public works. So what she basically told me was, you need a 6 to 8 person core committee, and then you break them out under topics. So you got public works, which is looking at trash, to energy, etc. You got your streets, you want walkability. You've got your energy. You got your schools. Schools are a lot of points. We've got the solar here. I know we've got them with the accounts and stuff. It might be a good way to hook in. And that's a really good thing to do with the kids to get them involved. And then you've got equity. Equity is going to be a big thing coming up. So whenever you're doing these projects, you have to understand the impact with regard to that. So I'm going to put together something from talking to her on the points. But the key thing was she thought 6 to 8, and then that's the core group, and then you got to break out. Like if you're going to have a group looking at streets, well, one person would have like, if you got like 30 people or whatever, you got a bigger group, but you need to like have somebody run those. And then we did get a draft of bylaws, so we can try to give a suggested, draft, but I would leave it to the group to decide how they really want to operate. So I just wanted to fill you in on that. We will give you more guidance if you want us to, which I think you do.
Yes, please.
Okay, that's a question. I talked to Michelle too, and she told me we can contact them. She told me she'd be happy to contact them and to talk to us about it.
So what you're saying basically, you have, let's say, 7 or 8, so someone would be in charge of each of those topics, and then the rest of the 30 would fall under those.
I'm trying to get the project, right, design the project. Well, that's the way, I'm not telling you how to do that.
But I'm saying, but that will allow everybody involved.
Right. I'm not familiar with the 501c3 or any of the other towns. My specific experiences in South Windsor. So to answer the question about that, so what is it? It's not a 501c3, so I'm going to give you an example. We talked about fundraising. It was a committee of the town. What? So what happens is you have authority here. I don't remember how we did it in South Windsor. It might have been under the planning and zoning, but you have authority under your plan of conservation and development to appoint a task force to do sustainable CT. Now, you don't call it sustainable CT under the plan of conservation and development, but that's what it is. And when you look at your plan of conservation and development, you actually have, like, the street stuff is in there, even though you didn't hook it, but it's certainly, you didn't tie it in, all right? But it's certainly something that you've anticipated, and it's something that you want to look at, and that, it depends on how much time you want to take to sit and look at that. But if you went through the plan of conservation and development, I think you'd find a lot of things in there that the sustainable CT, would know as goals, and it's already been charted out, like the street thing's already charted out in your plan. Now, it's a long plan, and, somebody needs to sit down and really look at it. And I did look at it, but not to the level of detail, but I can, and give you more information. But under the plan of conservation and development, it says town council. So you got two. You got the implementation committee, which is more of an overarching committee, which is planning and zoning, which they already did. It says planning and zoning appoints them. And then it says that the sustainable group is appointed by town council. That's what our opinion, our initial opinion said. So they're reporting to the town council. Well, I would imagine that's, if you look at the plan, I can break it out in more detail, but the plan has a lot of bullet points as to what to expect. Okay? It's already in there. And I know it was 2015, so it's been a while, but I think the basics are there. So, okay. You all right? Anything else? Thank you.
Okay, thank you both very much. Okay, moving on to new business subsection C. Update 2022 Small Town Economic Assistance Program, STEEP.
I think on Friday, or last week, the state announced that they are going to have a STEEP program, and Ray was very excited about it, and he wants to tell you all about it. I guess we can get up to $500,000.
You like that, Ray?
Like John said, I think it was Friday or Thursday, we had a Zoom meeting sponsored by OPM. Steve came out maximum of $500,000 for construction-only projects. Deadline is August 15th. This year, projects have to be fully engineered and designed and ready to go. They call it shovel-ready. Excuse me. All approvals in place. They don't require a match, but they're preferring towns have at least 20% match of the entire project cost, not just a grant match. And looking through our spreadsheet of potential projects compiled by the Sonic Group, our grant consultant, there are very few projects that are ready to go, or will be ready to go by August 15th. There are probably a couple of sidewalk projects, not just sidewalk projects, they're more of a, pedestrian community improvement projects. One would be Washington Street sidewalks, the connectivity to the river. And the other one I think it might be even more valuable is a sidewalk system for the Cold Springs neighborhood. It's the highest density portion, part of town, with, thousands of residents in one area. People always coming in asking the town to build sidewalks, and I think it would have a tremendous impact in that area and for the residents in that location. And according to Steve Sopelak, you don't really have construction drawings for sidewalks. They kind of go. However, there are cross-sections, construction profiles, and delineation mapping that we can do. More than likely by the grant deadline of August 15th, if that's what you would like to do. That would be my recommendation for the steep grant. Again, very little time, no engineering involved. And if we have a 20% match, towns are preferred customers if they have money to match.
So would that use up the whole 500,000?
It probably would. It's probably even more. And it's up to 500,000. They don't always give a max.
So we would need 100,000? Was it 10%? 20%? Yeah, so 100,000? Yeah. Okay.
Are we limited in terms of the projects that we can submit if we think we have multiple ones that might have a shot, or is it better to get behind one project?
It's probably better to get behind one project at this point. If we had, we do have projects in our capital, but they're not engineered.
Well, because I heard earlier with the government ops report, there was some talk about Elmridge Park. I don't know if there's anything that might fall into that framework that we could kind of use as well. But if we're limited, we think this is the best use for the Cold Springs sidewalk system, and we wouldn't want to muddy the waters.
And even Elmridge Park, though, they have to be, again, designed. And I know they're working on the overall master plan now. I don't think there'd be, we'd have to design a component within that master plan. It'd have to be fully, it's really kind of unrealistic. They want all the state approvals, historic preservation office approval, FEMA, all within this time period before they fund it. So we'll see how stringent they really are, that time of application. I don't know if too many towns will be able to comply with their requirements at this point.
And then potentially, if it were more money than the steep grant, is it something that would qualify under IIJA?
It could. I imagine it would be possible. For matching funds, we are not allowed to use other state funds nor ARPA funds. We cannot use ARPA funds for match either.
Mm-hmm.
Federal funds, yes.
But that's for the matching part. So if we had an $800,000 project, we could use our 100, 500 from steep, and from another source to get us that total, something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So do you need us to formally approve a Cold Spring sidewalk system?
They do require a resolution either at time of application or within 30 days after I submit the application.
To so we should probably make a motion to see if this is something we want to do, so that Ray is not wasting his time over the next 2 months. And that's the best recommendation. Okay.
So, Madam Mayor, make a motion to draft the resolution, have staff draft the resolution for next council?
For the Cold Spring
For the
sidewalk
Cold Spring
system.
sidewalk
Project associated
Project.
with the steep grant.
associated with the steep
Now
grant.
will provide 20% of the total cost. We do have
Next meeting,
money,
June 20.
we do have sidewalk money in there reoccurring. They could cover at least $100,000, so we look at a $600,000 project, or 580. Yeah, just 20% of that, yeah, whatever the math works out to.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see where we are. Do we have a resolution? Yeah, we have tables.
I think right, Madam Mayor, table item B till after executive session.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving right along to the mayor's report. So it's been very, very busy since we last met. I'm going to just give you a little briefing about what all has been happening in town. So the Rocky Hill PD participated in the torch run for Special Olympics this past week. Our Rocky Hill Greenway, as Mr. Ciccarello mentioned, was designated as a state greenway by the Connecticut Greenway Council, who selected 4 new greenways in 2022. So we would like to thank Mr. Ciccarello and Sandy Kelly for their hard work in getting our particular greenway on the map with DEEP, and for obtaining the little signs that are going to go out now. John, Ray, and I celebrated National Donut Day up at the DVA, which was hosted by the Salvation Army, and Lyman Orchards provided these really incredible apple cider donuts for everyone, but more importantly for the veterans. Apparently the very first dated back in 1938, and it started out as a fundraiser to help those in need during the Great Depression, and the Salvation Army continued with that. Their volunteers actually baked and delivered donuts during World War I, and they were called Donut Lassies, and that tradition continues with the Salvation Army visiting veterans across the state and giving them donuts on National Donut Day. And if anyone wants the recipe, it's on my Facebook page. The Greater Hartford Association of Realtors created a beautiful addition to Dividend Park, so we would like to thank them as well. It includes a very pretty parklet and a really cool bike pump that has bicycle tools attached to it. We want to thank both Central Connecticut Health District and a couple of our troops in Rocky Hill, our Girl Scout troops, for doing some beautiful landscaping and for their donations. There's a lovely bench, and it looks real pretty when you go out there now at Dividend Park. We held our first annual Pride Day, and it was a big success. The weather did not cooperate, so we were a little bit apprehensive, but we wound up having about 150 people come indoors at the community center, and we had a DJ and games and crafts and some really cool stuff going on outdoors, and speakers. We had resource tables set up, and all around everyone seemed to really enjoy themselves. They had a nice dinner, and I want to thank everyone who was involved with that committee for setting that up, and in particular Lori Stanzik, who really went out of her way to get so many people involved and create a wonderful first annual Pride Day event for the town of Rocky Hill. A quick shout out to the Rocky Hill Fire Department for their heroic efforts responding to a hazmat situation, which you may have seen on the news. The photos were startling, to say the least. There was an incident on I-91 South just after exit 23, and I guess all we can say is we are truly blessed to have such a dedicated, well-trained volunteer fire department. A couple more things. Rocky Hill Historical Society has a classic car show on June 16th from 6 to 8 p.m. They're having an ice cream truck, and that's going to be right across from the Town Hall parking lot. The Memorial Day Parade was a huge success, so I hope that everyone came out to see that, and if you didn't, I'm sure there's going to be a video up soon. I know there's tons of photographs out there on social media. Erin Connolly from Channel 3 was actually RMC this year, which was exciting, and Attorney General William Tong came as our guest speaker, and we have this new edition of a performance horse farm that donated 5 performance horses that helped us in the ceremony in delivering the wreaths that were laid at all of the memorials. So it was really a beautiful day all around. And, of course, for that I have to give a shout-out to Rita Chabra and, of course, to her parade committee for another amazing job well done. Thank you so much. Also that day, the fire department held its traditional special memorial and bell ringing. This year was a little bit different. There was a certain memorial and a special luncheon for our Captain Jim Lamar, who passed away on March 8th, and the Rocky Hill Fire Department dedicated its heavy apparatus vehicle in Jim's name in perpetuity. So there's a plaque on that vehicle, and that plaque will stay on that vehicle, and if we ever get a new vehicle, it will go to the new heavy apparatus one. So that was a very touching ceremony. And then finally, a shout out to Miss Kate Buell, who is a special education teacher at Stevens, and she became Teacher of the Year for 2022. So congratulations to her. And that concludes my mayor's report. And now we will move on to town manager's report.
Thank you. Just a couple things relating to MDC. Since 2008, MDC's been replacing all the water meters in the district's houses and so on. In order for them to replace them, they have to go inside the house and put in a new one, and that way it allows them to monitor the usage electronically as opposed to having a reader or the old postcards. Apparently they're down to about 540 meters that they have to replace, and 28 of them are in Rocky Hill. So those 28 people will be starting to get notices from MDC that they need to replace their meters, and they have to allow MDC to have access to the meters. If you don't respond by your third meter, they will be shutting the water off. So it should be starting within the next 4 to 6 weeks. The letter should start going out. So it's recommended that if you want to continue having water, you will contact MDC and set up a time for them to come out and replace the meter so that they can monitor it electronically. And also MDC is helping out people that may be having trouble paying their bills. They do have some, I believe, some payment plans, and forgot that piece of paper, but you can contact MDC about scheduling payments if you are delinquent on your bill. CROG, that Capital Region Council of Governments that Rocky Hill's a member of, along with, 20, 25 30 other towns, received a Regional Performance Incentive Program grant from the state, I believe. What CROG is looking to do with that grant is to try to establish some services that the member towns can use or benefit from. Of course, they're looking at something to do with regional economic vitality, in which they would probably formulate hire a economic development person for the area, and it would allow towns to use that service at a cost. The grants are to establish the programs and that within 4 years be self-sufficient. So similar to the economic one, where if you use that service, you'd probably have to pay a fee for it. They're also looking at doing it for the building official, fire marshal, code enforcement, zoning enforcement officers, and wetlands officers. So they would establish something at their corporate, the headquarters in Hartford, and due to shortages that towns are saying that they could use these types of officials to cover shortages or staff shortages. The other one they're looking at doing is also the assessor, as well as something related to the animal control officer. So again, these are programs that they seed money from the state, but they hope to make it self-sufficient within 4 years within CROG by having member towns use those services. Last week, the Parks Department got notified of a summer enrichment grant for about $44,500 that the Parks Department is going to use for the Summerscape Camp program. Primarily help support staffing costs, as well as maybe providing some help for other people, kids to attend the Summerscape programs, and this grant would pay for their admissions to the program. We got on June 22nd our first town farmers market, and it's from June 22nd from 4 to 7, and this year, again, keep repeating it, it's at Elmridge Park, not down at the ferry, so we'll see how that turns out. We're moving the location into a more high-traffic area as opposed to a high boating area. And the Health District is going to have a budget hearing on June 16th at 6 p.m. at their Rocky Hill location on 280 Silas Dean. Again, that's the 16th at 6 p.m. And another reminder, the high school graduation is June 18th, 10 o'clock at Duncan Donut Field. That's it.
May I just ask a quick question? So these 28 residents, I'm just thinking, do we have a list of what their addresses are in case somebody calls and said, MDC keeps sending me these letters and maybe they think it's a scam and they don't respond?
Well, it's going to come in a very formal letter. I don't know the 28, or
Okay.
I just got that notice that of the towns, they're going to be starting with Brownfield first, then they're going to hit, I think, Windsor and East Hartford, and then another town, and then Rocky Hill's fourth. So
I would think we could ask them, once they get to Rocky Hill, to send us the list.
I just feel like people are going to throw that away and think it's a scam because there's so many scams. I know what you're saying is going to look official, but that makes it kind of even worse, right?
Well, and it sounds like if they send you a letter first and you schedule the appointment, if someone shows up at your house saying you're MDC, that is probably a scam. Right? Like, they're not just going to cold call you, right? They're going to send you a notification and then you have to coordinate an appointment.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's good that we're getting it out there. We can maybe put a message out again. Okay. All right, moving on to executive session.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for A, contract negotiation discussion with the town manager and director of human resources and legal compliance regarding National Association of Government Employees, NAGE, N-A-G-E, Local R1-266, and B, review draft resolution regarding Charter 5, Section 501 and Section 504 per town charter. And we invite Attorney Morris Boria of Halloran and Sage and Dana McGee, Director of Human Resources, to join us in that executive session.
Second?
Aye.
with us?
Oh.
Jeff is with us, yes. He's right here.
Is Karen
He's staying on this.
He's in your heart, Chris? Okay.
Yep.
I will entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
Madam Mayor, make a motion to come out of executive session.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And I will now make a motion to untable new business, subsection D, adoption of a resolution, expiration of town manager's contract, and authority to appoint an acting town manager.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. With that, Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt Town Council Resolution of June 6, 2022, authority for appointment of acting town manager. Whereas the town manager's current contract with the town provides that the term of the town manager's contract and his appointment expires on June 30th, 2022, and whereas the town council is considering the appointment of an acting town manager upon the expiration of said contract, and whereas Section C5-4 of the Charter provides a relevant part that the council may only appoint an acting town manager in the event that the town manager is suspended or terminated, and whereas the town manager's appointment contemplated that said appointment would expire on June 30th, 2022, pursuant to the express terms of the contract, which was approved by the council and executed by the town manager, and whereas, read together, Sections C5-1 and C5-4 of the Charter require the affirmative votes of 6 members of the council to take action consistent with the terms of the contract and to appoint an acting town manager pursuant to the requirements of the town charter. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the council affirms that the appointment of the present town manager terminates by expiration of time on June 30th, 2022, pursuant to the contract, and that the town council may appoint an acting town manager as of July 1st, 2022.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion?
Because we have,
Oh, I'm sorry, we have one counselor not physically present, so we'll do the roll call vote. Counselor Malero?
Aye.
Counselor Greenspan?
Aye.
Counselor Levine? Aye. Counselor Deputy Mayor Sharma?
aye.
Counselor Counselor Duff.
Yeah, and I just would like to make a comment that the name of the resolution is authority for appointment of acting town manager, which is an exercise that was necessary in order for us to appoint an acting town manager, as the search that Deputy Mayor Sharma mentioned earlier in the meeting is underway. Without doing that, we would not be able to do it. So it's really a functional exercise due to the limitations of the charter, which at some point I think we'll probably look, because some of the language is perhaps not consistent with the way that modern businesses and towns are run. So that is really the thrust of it. It's just recognizing the end date of the current contract and allowing the council to move forward with a plan as we pursue a long-term solution to this position. So that, I'll say aye.
Aye.
I concur with Counselor Duff, and we'll vote yes. Okay. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone.